Welcome back to the Blue Collar Startup Members Only section. Here with Josh Jewett from Coles Collision. Thanks for coming in, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Darren.
Josh is back. Was one of the first guests we had in the podcast, and did a fantastic job, and had a lot of good stuff to say about process creation. So Josh has been gracious enough to accept our invite to come back and tell us what his secret to creating processes is. So, Josh, you want to talk a little bit about that and how you go about the setting processes and fixing problems?
Well, appreciate the invite back. Ultimately, for us, most of our processes have come out of continuous growth. So as we continue to grow, some things start to get strayed from the way we used to do it. So what we have found is that unless you have a process, every piece of the pie is going to be done its own way. So with us and repairing vehicles, a lot of things have to be done specifically a certain way. And if we offer a lifetime warranty to a customer and each person is doing it differently, it's really hard to pinpoint an issue when somebody does it this way, this guy does it that way, this guy might choose a different material than this guy, whatever the case may be. So ultimately for us, we had to develop standard processes for the main tasks that we're doing, not micromanaging, but ultimately kind of a bucket of either a repair or a replacement, and then what falls in line underneath that to where everything was systematic, used the same material every single time. So we got away from using different items and different materials to where we could create a better quality product. We were actually more efficient. It dropped our stress level because now everybody's on the same page. We don't have to guess on who used what happened here. And it just creates a more streamlined process. So for us, that's, I guess we developed them based on an issue that we saw coming down the pike or something that starts to become an issue to where it makes us investigate why, and then we develop, a process for that.
So what's the red flag typically that comes up and the light bulb goes off and says, hey, we need a process for this? What is typically that point? What do you see?
In most recent times, our sales haven't been better. Workflow hasn't been better, but our customer service in recent times has started to dwindle. We hold the bar very high on our survey. Customer filling out a survey. And I can see that some of the results were starting to dwindle in the wrong direction. So we hold that piece of our business very high. That's the way we're going to be able to continue to grow and survive, is by the customer. So it's not all of the fault of my customer service representative on the desk or even my management, because we've had global shortages on parts, materials. There's a lot of things that lately have become an issue for us to fix a car efficiently and keep within a relative amount of time, to where now those things are impacting the customer's experience. We have other entities that we use for our business to survive, like Enterprise. They're going through the similar struggles. So the people that they have working for them aren't as astute as they used to be. The cars that they're bringing over for the customer isn't of quality like it used to be. They used to have all new vehicles, low miles, very nice, clean cars. Now they're bringing over a car that's got 60,000 miles on it, might have a tire pressure light, probably has a few rattles here and there. And this guy's bringing in his car that potentially is brand new or relatively new. We do a lot of newer vehicles. So it creates not the best experience. So what we did recently was we already had a customer service rep, that position. I already had a standard procedure in place for that we would review with a new hire to make sure that they understood what we were going to be looking for, and to kind of give them a little game plan as to what the job entails. And granted, there's more to it than that. It's just, again, I look at it as buckets, and then you put tasks inside the bucket and then move on to another bucket. But over the years, things have changed. So what we did recently was, this past Tuesday, I had a meeting in my Albany shop, brought all the customer service reps there at the same time. We had lunch, brought in the general manager and the CFO, and I had already created a new rough draft standard process. So I took, what we had updated it for what I felt was necessary, and then brought them in for the final input. So what we did was we had lunch, and we all went through, the bucket, what tasks I felt were necessary to achieve a better customer experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had a conversation about it. And some people may have an input that changes your mind to where you're like, you know what, that is probably going to happen. So what can we do then as a group? Let's talk about it. What are we going to do to where we don't have that? We avoid the problem, but we're not going to do it my way. So how do we get there? And a few of them that have worked for us for a little bit longer than others have had some pretty good input. So ultimately, we made some notes, and ultimately it was a 3-hour maybe meeting. They left with a better understanding from my perspective on where we were coming from, so that way we can provide the customer a better experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just went in, made the edits. Now everybody has it in hand. And I think just in the event of even focusing on that is going to give us the result that we're looking for. So a lot of times you can, there's many different things that are going on in the business. If you don't focus on something, it's going to go backwards. As soon as you start focusing on it, you're going to get a better result. So for us, I've already seen, this was Tuesday, it's only been 2 days, but I've started monitoring real quick because now they know this isn't like I sent it out an email and nobody knows my perspective on it. Now they all know. So even just going into the shops, me doing some self-audit things while I'm there, I've already seen them doing the new tasks that I put in place to help have a better customer experience.
That's amazing. So after a 3-hour meeting, 2 days after the fact, you're already seeing
The results.
Mm-hmm. It's impressive.
I just left the shop close to here, and one of the steps was obviously engaging with the customer upon return. Customer brings their vehicle back, and I want them talking about a survey. So I want them talking to the customer about the survey and their experience, whether it's good or bad. You got to hear it. So I prefer it be a good experience, but if it's not, have the customer tell you right then and there, and maybe there's an explanation you can give him or something that wasn't, didn't click, to where you can avoid a bad survey, 2 days from now when the guy is at home thinking about his experience. So they've been doing that. We were doing that before, just not to this degree. And then the second part was actually walking the customer out with the final bill and reviewing everything that we've done from A to Z. And again, manager or assistant manager needs to then bring up their customer service experience, because that's where we currently need the most focus on, is the experience that the customer's having at the shop. So while I was there today, I had a customer picking up, verbatim, basically heard her go through the survey with the customer, and then the manager walk out the customer. I didn't go outside. I'll let them do that part, but ultimately I know that he was going through the new standard that we went over on Tuesday.
So just to kind of recap, and I think what you did as a leader was brilliant by bringing your team in and asking their input. A lot of people are offended or get offended, if you're not used to being in a leadership position. If other people tell you that you're wrong or there's a better way to do it, but you're open to listening to that and you allow them to contribute. We do the same thing, and I feel like that allows them to take some ownership of it. That's their idea.
Yeah. Yep.
And
they do it day in, day out.
Yep.
You or I understand it day in and day out, and sometimes maybe even do it with them. Or luckily for me, it's similar for you, starting out basically from scratch. I've done every single position that the business takes to get it to where it is today. So I've been in a customer service position. I've been an estimator. I've been in parts, whatever, to where I understand it. But them seeing things live every single day and feeling the heat from the customer, a lot of times they have a different perspective on it than I will sitting in my seat. So I think some of the things that they brought to my attention, some of them weren't even on my radar, to be honest with you. And then I'm like, well, valid point. So we're going to add that in here. And I agree. Also, it gives them some ownership to it. So then when they leave and they go back to the job, now they feel that they're part of it. Yep. They're not just an employee. They're not just, doing basically the same thing day in, day out. they hold a bigger role in that position that, what they say does matter. And that's not, I'm not just saying that to be cheeky. They truly do. I mean, there's a lot of times that some of our best ideas come from the employees because they're living and breathing it. They're seeing it. They're the ones that are, sitting there like, well, this is going to be a problem. So how do we fix this?
Yeah.
And luckily we have great employees that care. And
so, and it sounds to me, because you run a massive business, Josh, and how many locations are you guys up to now?
We have 5.
5. So you got 5 locations. You got how many employees running around?
Probably about close to 90.
You got 90 employees running around. And, it's how do you prioritize? Because, there's got to be, if you've got 90 employees or even, your 5 managers bringing you problems, how do you prioritize what problems need a process and how do you figure out where to start?
So I think at this moment, being in business, it's 15 years this year, I believe, that we've been open. I think we roughly have a process for just about everything currently. However, some of them are outdated. Some things have changed. The pandemic changed a lot of things that, ultimately we didn't see coming. So I think as far as a prioritize in this instance, the customer is the priority. Without the customer, we don't have business.
Yeah.
So, to me, it only took less than 60 days of me seeing where I'm holding a bar and just to, my bar is at 95%. So the customer surveys that come in per month, and then it gives a amount of surveys, what your total is, and it gives you more of a breakdown. There's 10 or 12 questions, but at the end of it is an overall CSI score. Our bar is at 95%. So I don't want to see that bar below 95% for any shop at any point. And if we do, then we start to focus on that shop and figure out why. So this was less than a 90 or a 60 day. I saw it to just jump under that. And I've been hearing I don't want to say excuses because it's legit, but when I start, hounding them about customer service, they're like, I can't get parts. Or I had Mrs. Smith's car sitting outside for 2 months waiting for a fender. I can't fix that. I agree. You can't build a fender. You can't find a fender that's any faster. But what did you do for Mrs. Smith while she waited 2 months? Did you just leave her in the dark? Was she aware on a weekly basis or every 10-day basis that you called the dealership to check on her part to make sure that it's still coming? There's things that, okay, I agree. And this is happening, unfortunately, more often that we're struggling to find parts. So cars are taking longer to get fixed. But there's things that we can do that are in our control, right? So contacting a customer is truly in my control. We can do that every day. We can do it every 10 minutes if we want. So that's something that ultimately I think they started to get away from because they were, I think a lot of them, unfortunately, it became not just a 1 or 2 customers waiting on parts. You have 40, 50 cars in process, 30 of them are waiting on parts. And, it's a struggle. So it's, for me, the prioritize in this instance was the customer is the priority. So that's, as far as me on a daily, how I focus my energy, honestly, I don't know. I feel like it comes natural.
Well, I think, and you're very good at that, obviously, with the direction and how fast you guys are growing.
Right.
So, and I think, the ability to just pick that one thing that you want to be really, really good at, customer service, right? That's the goal of a service business. And do everything in your power to make that experience better.
Right.
And I can attest, we're a customer, and some of our employees tend to wreck our vehicles every now and then.
Right,
Exactly,
yeah.
The customer service is outstanding, and it's interesting to hear you say that now because that really is what you guys focus on.
Yeah.
So you pick that one big thing, and then how do we get better? How do we get better? How do we get better? And prioritize those.
Yeah, I think for us, even from the beginning when we first started, a customer comes in with their vehicle damaged, they expect when they're done it to look right. They expect it to match. They expect the inside to be clean. Those are expectations. What they don't expect is that someone is going to be there and actually care about what they're doing. Someone that's actually going to recognize them by their first name. Somebody that's going to take the extra steps to get all the information from the insurance company and make it a much smoother process for the customer. That's not expected. So if we can focus on the things that aren't expected and elevate the customer experience, it's helped us grow, rather rapidly, in focusing on the customer.
So clearly you've done a great job too, and you guys I know have a great staff. When you're creating processes and you're fixing those problems and plugging them with processes, a lot of small business owners struggle with it because they might have 3 or 4 employees that are all on a different page.
Right.
What would be your recommendation for a small business owner who's trying to figure out where to start and what processes to create, and where is that line of process creation and then micromanaging?
Yeah. I'm not certain, other than what works for us is basically roundtable group discussions, and we have them monthly.
Okay.
So this was a little bit different in me revamping the customer service standard procedure, but monthly, all of my management staff meets together. We usually skip a location, so we'll do, one month we'll do up here in the northern zone, and then the next month we'll do down in the Albany zone. Everybody comes to the same place. We grab, we'll have dinner. We usually grab something decent, so it's not just pizza and everybody's getting fat. But we'll sit there and we'll productively talk about, in the last 30, 35 days, what are we seeing, what is starting to rear its head, so that way we can collaboratively, all of us as a management team, start to focus on it before it gets out of control. And sometimes I think some of the staff might find it to be redundant, and even myself, what I've realized is you can't give up. You can't just say, well, I've already said this how many times, and you're going to throw the towel in. I honestly probably repeat myself every 90 days. That's what it feels like. I said this to the guys this year. I feel like I could record myself in January and play it back in April, and it would be the same. Now, between January and the middle of February, we had it on, we were all doing great, and then it just starts to coast off. And I think it's just human nature.
Yeah.
Somebody made a reference once, even you pave a new road, the first car that drives over it starts to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, no matter how good or how much you keep trying to tighten up things, there's always going to be, starts to want to go back the opposite direction. So we focus on continuously talking about.
Do you post any after you guys write these processes, you all agree on them as a management team, you write them down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then what do you do with them from there? Do you post them in the shops? Do you put them in the office?
So all of our standard processes for the body shop
mm-hmm.
are in the body shop. So if you go to any of the shops today, I have a poster. I think each poster might be 6 feet by 8 feet, pretty big. So you can read them by standing on the ground. And our standard is right on the wall. So ultimately, if you got a new employee or somebody that's doing something that management knows is not standard, they can easily say, hang on, time out. Let's go over here and revisit exactly the way we're supposed to be doing this. It's not, let's call Josh, let's call Joe or whoever and find out what they think. No. It has nothing to do with what we think. What is our standard? Here's our standard. As far as the micromanaging part, I'm just not a micromanager. I can't do it. I think that I find it annoying myself. If somebody was to micromanage me, I wouldn't work well in that environment. So I don't do that. I'd say in some cases, Derek, I think that's probably something I could work on better, because as much as I'd like to create a similar McDonald's at all 5, 6, 10, whatever locations we have, I can't, because each one has their own little culture, right? So their office staff might click just a little bit different to where they deviate from this one thing that we typically do, or a type of standard, because it works for them.
And you're okay with that?
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's weird to say this, but the clientele in each store is completely different. I know we're all from the capital region, and we're all from Saratoga to Troy. Each shop, the customer is a completely different. I couldn't, you can't take the person that gets their car fixed in Troy and bring them to Clifton Park. Different people, so they're different. I don't know, they're more. And I'm not cutting down anybody. This is just an observation. You find it weird. In Troy, there's a lot more SUVs where we are, like bigger trucks, cars, and people are more relaxed, more open to, yeah, I understand it's going to take 2-3 weeks. That's fine. You know, call me when it's all done. Clifton Park, it's all smaller hits, so not a lot of SUVs, a lot more cars or luxury, higher, you know, maybe BMW, Mercedes type things. They're not hit that hard, so it's a quicker job. Bumper, fender, door, you know, small things. And that customer wants that car back before it even got there. They don't care what your schedule is. They don't care what story you have. They literally, I'm bringing my car in on Tuesday and I need it back on Wednesday. If not, I'm going to burn this place down. So it's just weird. You get different flavors in different neighborhoods.
So your staff has to adjust to that too.
Absolutely. And I think if I was to say standardize, we do micromanage, everything the same, it wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
At least for our business. Because the way that they know how to help the customer in Clifton Park wouldn't be the same way that they help the customer in North Greenbush area. And in Albany, we kind of get a mixed bag. You know, we're doing Teslas, we're doing high-end cars. You have to treat those customers completely different. They're very intelligent. They're very in tune with their vehicle. They read the owner's manual. They understand the car very well. So they want a lot of information. So you can't, you know, give that same customer experience that you would on a 1991 Dodge pickup to the customer that has a 22 Tesla that drives itself there. So it's just, and they could walk in at the same time. You could have the guy walk in with a 91 Dodge Ram and the guy walk in with a 22 Tesla, and you gotta obviously cater to them differently.
Yep.
And it's not that the guy with the Dodge doesn't deserve as much attention. He just probably doesn't either need it or want it, or who knows? Everybody's cut from a different cloth. You know, the way I see things when I go into a business, there's going to be different than the way you see it. So I think for us, micromanaging it to that level, at least in the customer service position, might not benefit us. But I can see how it can be a benefit if you can get something simplistic to where it is McDonald's. Yeah. You less errors.
Yeah.
Right. And you get the same at every store. No matter where you go, you get the same thing. So.
But it is unique. You bring up the point about everybody being different and catering to it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You have to.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, everybody. There's process creation. Josh Jewett, Coles Collision. How can folks reach you, Josh?
Reach me by email, jjewett@colescollision.com. And thanks, Derek. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
All right, buddy.